Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at a knife from QSP. This was sent to me by QSP for review, along with another model, which I'll quickly show you here. This is the Copperhead and this is the Pheonix. To me, these are the best, the nicest looking two of QSP's models for this year. And so when I was talking with them about reviewing something, I said, yeah, those are the ones that visually appeal to me the most. The other thing I will point out, a couple quick things by way of introduction, other than the fact that QSP sent these to me. Secondly, this one did need a little love initially. Out of box, it was a little rough. I took it down, I cleaned everything up, I lubricated everything, and now it is very nice. But as I say, it did take me a little bit of effort. So when I say this has a nice action, you need to know that, I had to tweak it a little bit to get it to that point. The other thing is, this is just one of a number of variants available in this particular model. There's, green and I think black and a couple others. And then you can do the DLC on the blade or not. You can go do a totally satin blade. I don't think there's an all black blade option, but I could be wrong about that. So I think that covers all of the sort of introductory stuff. Let's go ahead and give you the specs on this guy. Overall, it's 8 and 11/16, so almost 8 3/4 inches, 3 3/4 inches on the blade, 4 and 15/16, so almost 5 inches on the handle length. All right, tons of grip area, over 4 inches of grip area here. So even if you have giant monster hands, you're going to be fine holding on to this. And 5.1 ounces. So this is a fairly hefty knife, but it's also a fairly large knife. So, 5 ounces at almost 9 inches. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. The blade up here, let's see here, is D2 steel. You can see this one has black on the black DLC on the flats, satin on the bevels. It's sort of a reverse Tanto style shape or a Warncliffe style shape. Nice bit of belly all the way along. Nice and thin behind the edge, but it is a fairly thick blade stock and a fairly thick grind overall. So this is not going to be, the knife you use for slicing up apples or something like that. But as an EDC knife, I find it performs very well, especially if you want, a tougher, heavy-duty blade that can really inspire a lot of confidence. Going with this reverse Tanto does carry a lot of material out to the tip and make this a knife that I would feel pretty comfortable using in just about any scenario you could imagine. In terms of edge retention, it seems to do quite well. I did all of my regular cutting with this and it performed as I would expect D2 to perform. So no big complaints there. Obviously keep in mind that D2 is not a stainless steel. So if you buy one of these and you live, I don't know, in Florida or, on a coast or something like that, you're going to have to take a little extra care of it. Being here in Ontario where I am, the humidity is not that crazy and the air is, generally a little drier. So D2 tends to work really, really well for me. One warning I will give you, I did, which knife was it? I can't even think. I think it might have been my Rat Model 1. So I've got the Rat 1 here in D2. And one time I left this in my pocket and I went out and did a bunch of snow shoveling. Not just my own driveway, but I was actually shoveling out around fire hydrants with the fire department, and I did get some rust from a couple of hours with that thing sitting in my pocket with all the rust, with all the sweat and humidity that I created doing that job. So that's the kind of situation that D2 does not excel in. But outside of that, I've had really, really good luck with D2 steel. And of course, the trade-off is that you get really, really nice edge retention. So D2 is a good option, especially if you're more worried about performance than looks, which I definitely am. D2 is a fantastic steel. The QSP banner here on the blade is a little over the top, but it's not, not a huge deal as far as I'm concerned, but it may put some people off. Moving on, let's talk about the action here. So this is, of course, a liner lock flipper with a very stiff detent, or a pretty stiff detent. The only real issue I have with this, now as I said, initially this was kind of rough. As you can see, it's smoothed right out, but I did have to take this apart and clean it up to get it functioning the way that I wanted it to. Now, maybe some of you won't have, standards that are quite as high as mine. I don't know. Some of you, and maybe you'll get lucky and yours will just be perfect out of box. This one absolutely was. I haven't done anything to this knife and it's just really, really smooth, really, really fast. So no issue at all. This one, as I say, had to clean it up a little bit. Now it's really smooth. I love the action, totally impressed. Again, I feel like I have to say this every time, and I will keep saying it because there's always a chance that someone's watching who won't be aware of this. Bearings in a knife are great. They produce a really smooth, really fast action, which is highly enjoyable for flicking your knife. However, where they're limited is in, what applications you can use the knife. Okay, if you're in a really dusty environment, construction site or something like that, this is probably not the knife to pick because of the potential for dirt and grime and gunk to get into that pivot, requiring some maintenance. All right, now oftentimes a bit of WD-40, some forced air, and some lubrication will fix you right up. But worst case scenario, you may have to take the knife apart. And so that's one of the added complications that's introduced with bearings. The other complaint I have about this, and bearings is not a complaint at all. The only complaint I really have about this is it can be a little tough to get your finger in there and access that lock bar. I would have liked to see, they've actually smoothed, see if I can show you. They've actually smoothed this jimping out quite a bit. And I feel like if they had left the jimping just a little bit sharper, then I wouldn't have to fight as much to get a hold of that lock bar and get it out of the way. So that's about the only hiccup with action. And it's not terrible, it's just not as nice and convenient and comfortable as I would like it to be. All right, so how about construction? How did they put this thing together? Well, we've got G10 liners here that are nicely textured. They are contoured, which is really, really nice. Two-way positionable clip here, stainless steel liners, and if you take a look in there, I think you can see, yeah, you can see pretty easily there. They have been milled out to save on the weight. G10 backspacer back here, and a really nicely integrated lanyard hole. The other thing I wanted to point out here is in that movable clip, they've put a little insert here, which is a nice touch, especially at the price point that these come in at. So that's how it's put together. Pretty standard fare, but this is well done. The fit and finish is nice. The overall sort of structure and the way this is put together, I definitely appreciate. It's also a pretty stout knife. It's heavy duty and it feels really heavy duty in hand. It feels very confidence inspiring, and I do enjoy that as well. In terms of ergonomics, now this gets a little bit of a benefit. This is a little thicker, like it's every bit of ½ an inch thick. And so we've talked about this before on the channel, but a thicker handle is almost always going to be more comfortable. And this one is, it's really, really nice. Now it's not, you can see here that it's not all rounded and a bunch of choils here to fit your fingers or anything. It's just sort of, a plain squarish handle, but it is actually quite comfortable in hand. I have no issues whatsoever in any grip. There's no hot spots. There's no issues that way whatsoever. So ergonomics are quite nice on this guy. What about comparisons? And here's where you really get into a challenge. And I've got to say, I feel for anyone coming into the marketplace right now. If you're making a knife, especially if you're an overseas company, man, there are so many good companies making knives that you're going to be hard. It's just a hard market to really make a dent in and to compete meaningfully. Now, one of the knives that I have to start off with by comparison here is, of course, the Rat Model 1. Very similar in terms of construction, similar in terms of purpose. Obviously, there's no bearings in here. This is washers, this is bearings. And so that presents one particular issue that some of you are going to feel strongly about one way or the other. I lean toward, in a knife of this genre, if you will, I lean toward washers, okay? In a gentleman's knife, in a knife that I don't plan to carry and use hard, I love bearings because they make a really nice action. But in a knife that feels like it's hard use to me, then I'm going to lean away from that. And to each his own, but that's certainly the way I feel about it. The other thing I want to bring in here is there are some really budget-friendly options that this guy has to compete against. We have the Gonzo, or I guess it's the Firebird FH11, the Tangram. There are a number of Tangram knives. This one happens to be the Progression. These both come in at a pretty attractive price point compared to this. Now, let me say, I don't think it's out of line. I don't think the value is off kilter at all. There's all kinds of, a number of these sort of D2 bearing knives, from Best Tech and from other places, Kaiser Vanguard series and stuff are around the same price as this. Let me bring in a couple of other comparisons Here is the Real Steel Ippon. This is a little more expensive, okay? It does run N690 steel, which is definitely an upgrade to D2. Well, performance-wise, maybe not, but certainly has better stainless characteristics. And N690 is a good steel, and so the Ippon is running that and is a little more expensive. The other knife we should bring in here that is, again, almost double the price is the... There we go. The Real Steel Megalodon. This is the Revival, and it's an attempt to bring in to sort of bring a middle price point offering. So we've got the other. There are a number of Megalodons out there. All of them I really, really like. Okay, let's just say that. You go into a whole discussion about this. So we'll leave that at that. But it is going to cost you a little more. This is a little closer in price point. I think it's about 20 bucks more. Let's get it out of the way. And finally, one knife I wanted to bring in here just because it's a favorite knife of mine, and I think it kind of strikes the balance that this is trying to strike. This is the American Lawman, of course. Many of you are familiar with it. And it's only going to cost a little bit more than this. Well, maybe not. I think these go for about 70 bucks. This is going to be about 50. The thing to keep in mind here is that this is, I think, going to be a little heavier duty, a little more versatile in terms of where it can go. Now, the one thing I will say is these used to be available widely on Amazon. They were sort of a QSP was sort of an Amazon-only type of approach, but now they're available at most knife retailers. Obviously, I want you to go to White Mountain Knives and use my discount code SHARPSTUFF to pick yours up, because that does help the channel. I've got a couple of things that I want to say here at the end of the comparisons. Number one, I think if you're looking at something like this, you ought to go look at some Civivis. They are very, very good. You may as well look at those at White Mountain Knives as well, since you're on the website anyway. And there are some other QSP models. So, I've got these two, and honestly, they're both quite well done. And I'm really, really impressed with both of these. The fact that I'm pretty happy with these two gives me enough confidence to say, hey, go check out the rest of their models. Maybe you don't feel the same as I do, right? These are the ones that stood out to me, but they may have something else that's a little more suitable to you. And if they're consistent at all in their construction, then I think you'll be pretty happy. Again, what do I think of this particular knife? I think it's a good design. I love the blade shape. I love the overall flow of this knife. I particularly like the black DLC on the flats. I think QSP has done a great job this year sort of expanding their lineup and giving us a little bit more. The initial knife they came out with was well put together. I just didn't love the design, but these two, and this one especially, I've got to say, I really, really enjoy these designs. I think they're well done and they're well put together as well. So, what's not to like? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.